Octave passages are always super impressive. And they may sound hard, but the principles behind them are actually quite simple. So today you're gonna learn how pro pianists actually play octaves. You learn how to play them as fast as you want, as loud as you want, and most importantly, how to play them accurately, without mistakes, and without any kind of tension. So here are the 3 steps to playing octaves like a pro, so that you never struggle with any of those passages ever again. But before we start with the 3 steps, let me show you a couple of things you should never do when you play octaves. The first one is this. Put your hand on a table or any surface like this. And now push down as hard as you can. If you do it correctly, you should feel your triceps fully engaged. Alright, so now that you feel it, pay attention. This is exactly what you need to avoid at all costs. And this is why. If you play a series of octaves and you push each one down with your arm, your triceps engagement will look like this. And because you need to move your arm up again after every octave, your biceps, which are the antagonist muscles to your triceps, will look like this. So this way, you have 2 big muscles fighting each other. This will create a huge amount of tension on your arm. And most importantly, you'll destroy your elbows. The elbow is where the muscle, which is a thick mass, becomes a tendon, which is a thin little string. If you put all that energy through that tendon repeatedly, it'll get hurt. Then you'll get an inflammation back here, and then it'll hurt like hell. So don't ever push down with your arm when you play octaves. That's a recipe for disaster. And the second thing you should never do is this. Let's come back to the same table or surface. I want you to try hitting it with your fingers, but starting the movement from the wrist. And now try doing that a bit faster. You probably feel how your whole hand gets tense. And that's because we have the same case as before, but in another part of the arm. Up here, we have the biceps and the triceps fighting against each other. The forearm is a bit different, because it doesn't have a single muscle for one single movement. There are a lot of little muscles that work in groups. For simplicity, let's just put a name to those groups. The ones which bend your wrist up, like accelerating on a motorbike, are called the extensor muscles. And the ones which bend the wrist down, like this, are called the flexors. Think of these 2 groups as the biceps and the triceps of your forearm. And the same as the real biceps and the triceps, they are not designed for quick, small and repeated movements, especially against each other. So if you make them do that, you'll probably not hurt the muscles themselves because they are quite strong, but you'll definitely hurt the tendons in your wrist. So if we can't push down with our arm and we can't push down with our wrist, how the hell do we play octaves? Don't we have to push down with anything? No, we don't. It's time to introduce you to the 3 steps of playing octaves like a pro. Step 1. I want you to picture yourself jumping. Just jumping as high as you can. What are you actually doing when you jump? Newton's third law says that for every action, there is a reaction. So every force we exert on an object is reflected back on us. If you push a wall, the wall will reflect that force back on you, and you'll be pushed away from it. And if you push the floor down with your body, the floor will push you up, and you'll jump. And now this is important. If instead of jumping, you try to hit the floor with your feet as hard as you can, you won't be pushed up a second time. That's because you're creating a violent impact, and that reaction force will be absorbed by your body, which will probably hurt. With that idea in mind, let's go back to the piano. So, if you try to play octaves by pushing down from your arm, first you'll activate your down muscle, then your arm will absorb the impact, and then you'll activate your up muscle. And as you can probably guess, this is extremely inefficient. So what if we could use that reaction energy to our advantage instead of just absorbing it? I want you to press the 2 keys of an octave, but without making a sound. Feel the bottom of the keys, the point where they can't go lower. That's your floor. And now from that floor, I want you to jump as high as you can. Now you don't need a muscle pressing down, you don't have to absorb a violent impact, and you don't need another muscle to move up to release the keys. That's step 1. Jump from the floor of the keys instead of pushing them down. And just a pro tip to wrap up this step. When you jump, your fingers will move toward you, which means, because of reaction forces, your wrist will want to go not only up, but also forward. Let it happen. On the other hand, don't force that wrist forward movement, like trying to punch the piano. But if the wrist wants to move forward, just let it go. It means you're doing it well. Alright, let's move on to step number 2. So now imagine you want to play a nice jumping octave. But then you remember that your teacher told you many times that your hands and your wrists and your arms must be relaxed. The point is, if you relax your wrist at the same time you jump, it will collapse. And if you relax your hand too much, your knuckles will collapse. And as a consequence, your octaves will be weak. But there's a trick to make your hand solid at the same time that you keep the same relaxed feeling. And I can explain that trick with a single word. Grab. If you grab an octave at the same time you jump, you'll activate your fingers, your knuckles, and also your wrist. Nothing will ever collapse, and the jump will be perfectly executed. But here's the important bit. The grabbing lasts only for a split second, just while you're jumping. After you jump, you have to relax your hand again while it's in the air. You can't keep grabbing the air, right? It'll create a lot of tension. Just grab and jump, and then relax. Then you drop your hand smoothly, and you put it nicely on the next octave before you jump again. So that's the second step. Grab your octaves while you jump to keep your hand and your wrist perfectly solid. Not rigid, but solid. So let's jump directly into the third and final step. This is when everything makes sense. Now that you've internalized the jumping and the grabbing, we are ready to talk about weight. Look, our arms have weight. If my arm is totally relaxed, like a dead person's limb, and I release it, it'll just fall until it hits something. But the cool thing about our arms is that they can also hold their own weight. For example, I can hold it right here. Now I'm holding 100% of the weight of my arm. But here's the thing. If I want to drop my arm, but gently, what I do is, instead of relaxing it completely, I'll just hold some of its weight right here and let gravity do the rest. So instead of falling like this, I'm falling like this. I'm not moving it down, okay? Not like this. I'm just letting it fall gently. I want you to pause the video now and try to feel that. Okay, so now this is the moment you were waiting for. So here's what you're gonna do. Choose a single octave and drop your arm's weight on the bottom of those keys. All the weight. No jumping just yet. It should feel heavy on your thumb and pinky fingers. Feel that. Okay, now try to jump really high, like in step 1 and 2, but wait. At the same time you jump, keep your arm fully relaxed, holding no weight at all, and let it drop after the jump. Here's what will happen. But of course, we don't want that. First, it hurts. Second, it sounds awful. And third, we have no control at all. So this is when we want a gentle fall. Do you remember how we get a gentle fall? Exactly. Instead of letting all the weight drop, we hold some of it and let gravity do the rest. So let's try that. We'll start from the initial position at the bottom of the keys of an octave, now jump and fall gently on the same octave. Remember to relax your hand in the air. And now you have much more control on where you land and also how gently and how hard you land. In fact, you can try landing with different levels of gentleness. this little exercise will help you a lot to develop your motor control. And this is the moment when you realize you never have to push down to play octaves. Gravity is playing them, not you. You're just controlling how much gravity you're allowing into the piano. And for the last step, all you have to do is try and chain a few jumps. Instead of just landing, just jump again from the bottom of the key as you fall. And that's it. That's all you need to know about octaves. Look, if you want to play fast octaves, like in that section of Rhapsody 6, you just need to do very short jumps, dropping very little weight, like a child jumping a rope. And if you want to play loud and bombastic octaves, like the ones in the Tchaikovsky concerto for example, just drop a lot of weight and make your fingers work really hard to jump against that weight. Now you're a heavyweight boxer jumping a rope. So, in short, your fingers control the height and the speed of the jump, and the weight you drop controls the dynamics. Just remember that if you drop a lot of weight to play very loud, you need to jump and grab with more energy, and it'll feel much heavy on the fingers. And this is the part that takes a lot of training, like years of constant practice. You need to develop a perfect control of the amount of weight you drop, calibrate the jumps with your fingers, and condition your muscles to develop that speed, that power, and that accuracy. And unfortunately, there are no shortcuts there. But now you know the theory and you know how to practice. So all you need is time and patience. So the third and final step is learn to use your weight. That's the key to octaves and to everything actually. And let me share a couple of last-minute pro tips. The first one is fingering. My personal recommendation for fast octaves is 4 for black keys, if your hands can reach that, and 5 for white keys. Although sometimes I prefer the pinky for everything. It depends, really. But if you use 4 and 5, you can't go wrong. And the second one is about accuracy. In order not to miss any octaves, focus always on your thumbs. Your muscle memory knows the distance of an octave perfectly, and the thumb is the most comfortable finger to look at. So if you make your thumb play accurately and confidently, your top note will also be accurate, like 100% of the time. Thank you so much for staying until the end. If you like this kind of content, consider subscribing too, so that you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next video.